So we're in the midst of World Series madness. For Mets fans, this is a long-awaited moment. First time in 15 years you're in the World Series, and hopefully, in spite of last night's disaster, it'll turn around and it'll be the first time to win a World Championship since 1986. Good times, right? For me as a Yankees fan, it's hard to watch another team, especially from New York, be in the World Series, but also I am happy for the other half of the New York baseball fans who, for a change, don't have to sit around in misery and suffering anymore watching their team lose. So we hope the Mets will win. Baseball forms a powerful and appropriate backdrop for our gathering together today on this All Saints Day. You think about baseball, in every single stadium, at every single game across the nation, during the seventh inning stretch, everyone pauses for a moment of silence. A moment to remember since September 11th those who have been serving to protect our freedoms and those who have lost their lives protecting our freedoms. Part of our being human is honoring and remembering our dead. It's what sets us apart from all the other animals on the planet. It makes us better than just people in the food chain or people who have this survival of the fittest mentality. We know it's important to remember our dead, to honor them, to see where they've come from and what blessings we've received from those who have gone on before us. And one of the other reasons I enjoy baseball is that every year on Old Timers Day, they will take a moment of silence also and remember all those players who have gone on to eternity in a moment of silence and reflection also. And this isn't just with baseball. It happens all around the country in all different ways. During the Oscars every year, they'll remember those significant passings from the entertainment business. And at the end of every calendar year, you can always find the news media reflecting upon the significant losses from the last year. And every single day, just about, you can pick up a newspaper and you can find memorials from family members who are remembering the anniversary of a death of a loved one. That's how important it is for us. And how precious life is. It's a statement when we remember those who have gone on before us that life is valuable, life is important, and we cherish those who have been given to us. Now, if you've lost a loved one, you know that the sorrow and the emptiness that's brought by death never really goes away. You figure out ways to put fences around it so you can continue to function and exist as a human being and move on with your life. But the fact of the matter is sometimes the grief hits us in unexpected ways that we don't even know where it comes from. And also, if you've lost a loved one, you also realize that sometimes it's not that immediate aftermath of the death, not that first year. No, there's some numbness, there's some shock about it, but it tends to be the second anniversary and moving on past that event where the reality of the loss and the emptiness of the loss seems to hit us. And that's why All Saints Day for us as the people of God in the church is so important and so precious. It reminds us there's a place for our tears with our God and our Creator. But more importantly, our God tells us what He does with our tears. And I love that this year the gospel lesson for All Saints Day is from my favorite chapter in the Bible. I hope by now you know that John chapter 11 is as a whole my favorite passage in the Bible because it says so much to all of us in so many different ways. One of the reasons I love this passage is that wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you can find yourself in one of the characters that surround Jesus and Lazarus in this precious story. Perhaps you're the bumbling disciple. You want to please God, you want to do the right thing, but time and time again you mess it up, right? Those were the apostles. Maybe you're the faithful Mary and Martha type, where you pray and you seek the Lord's answers, you seek the solutions that God offers, but you're frustrated at times because you don't think God hears your prayers. Maybe you're the skeptic, like the skeptical crowd that gathered around the tomb to mock Jesus. Couldn't He who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Or maybe you're Lazarus. Maybe you're just waiting for an awakening or a renewal, new life that comes by this journey of faith. Whatever it may be, wherever you may be in your spiritual walk, in your spiritual journey, you can find yourself in this passage. And you can see what God does for you by raising Lazarus from the dead. But one of the most beloved aspects of this passage is for me are the words that come from Jesus' mouth. The shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus began to weep. Some translations have Jesus wept. 2 words. Those 2 simple words, and everything that surrounds those words, show us the most about our God and our Creator, the one who saves us. For it gives us insight into the heart of God. Listen to the words that lead us to that portion of the passage. Jesus was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. At the death of his friend Lazarus, the God of all creation is deeply disturbed in spirit and moved. Think about that. Those simple words and that short verse, Jesus began to weep, flies in the face of all the false teachings that tell us that our God and Creator is just out there to punish us or make us suffer for all sorts of things that we do wrong. No, nothing could be further from the truth. In these words, Jesus wept. We see the heart of our God. And this is the kind of God I want in my life. A God who weeps with me when I'm hurting. A God who understands the pain and the loss of death, the effects of sin and brokenness in this world, and a God who cries, especially with me, to do something about it when I'm in the midst of these struggles. And that's what leads us then to the comforting conclusion of the text. Jesus doesn't just weep with us. He just doesn't sit by the sidelines feeling our pain, but it moves God to do what God has to do for us as being best for us. And so with those words, Lazarus come out, he raised Lazarus from the dead. He showed us that our faith isn't merely just wishful thinking or pious platitudes to help us feel better when things go wrong in our world and our lives and our eyes are filled with tears. No, he was moved to action to raise Lazarus to give hope and show us he is the power over sin and death. This is what we need to deal with the emptiness and sorrow that comes to us, and we remember on this All Saints' Day as we remember those who are closest to us. There's been, in recent times, a lot of fascination with books and the media regarding heaven. 90 Minutes in Heaven, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, Heaven is Real, are just some of the books and some of the movies that have come out over the last decade. And I think the fascination with these things is that we as human beings like to be in control. We don't like it when we don't understand something or we don't have an answer to something or we don't know what to expect. So any insight that we can get into what happens at death and where we go, we want it. But the reality is it's a great mystery. It's really that moment where we have absolutely no control as human beings. We are absolutely and completely dependent upon the hands of something bigger and greater than us to care for us. And the raising of Lazarus is the reminder to us that even though we may not understand death, and we may not know everything we want to know about heaven, that our God is more powerful than sin and death. Our God is the resurrection and the life. In the olden days, I can almost say that now, but in the olden days in Sunday school, kids often had to memorize Bible verses. And so the crafty kids in the class would often choose John 11:35, the shortest verse, Jesus wept, in order to memorize it, right? Because they don't want to expend themselves too much. If that's the only verse you had to memorize or could memorize out of the Bible, it's not a bad one to know, because the verse really gets us to the bottom line of what our faith is about. It gets us to the bottom line of the hope that we have as God's people. It gets us to the bottom line of the power over sin and death, because our God experiences what we experience and knows the pain of death. We have the hope of the resurrection. And it leads us then to experience what it must be like during a baseball game when it's the bottom of the ninth and there's 2 outs and you're trailing by 1 run and there's 2 strikes and your best hitter gets up and hits a 2-run home run to win the game. Tears are turned to laughter. Death is turned to life.